What's up and what's happening, TPE family? We're back with another episode of the Pivot Experience podcast, where our aim and goal is to help leaders get better each and every day. My name is Alex Seal, and I've had the pleasure of working for the world's most caring company for the last 20 years. And it's my goal to take those experiences and bring them to you guys in a way that'll help you pivot into your next. As you guys know, here on the Pivot Experience podcast, we like to bring on guests who I feel like have value, have a story, have some history and leadership that is going to help you gain some information, gain some insight, and gain some knowledge just on some things that you may be struggling with, some areas of opportunity for you. And today we have a very special guest by the name of Paul Boyles. Paul is a John Maxwell certified speaker. He is also a John Gordon certified leader as well. Me and Paul have been interacting very lightly on LinkedIn, and Paul took the leap, and I love when people do this. He took the leap to say, "Hey, man, I would love to be a guest on your show." I know I've been in that position several times in terms of just interacting with people, and so of course my answer was yes. Especially when I looked at his profile, he was somebody who I felt like our values as it pertains to leadership development and our thoughts on leadership seem to align. And so I'm really excited about this conversation that we're going to have today. Paul, how are you doing today, sir?
Very good, thank you, and I really appreciate being here. I appreciate the opportunity. It's exciting for me, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Man, awesome. So just, for myself and for the audience, can you tell us who is Paul? What is Paul all about?
Sure, yeah, long career in HR, human resources, 35 years. I've worked in the service industry. I've worked in hospitality business, state government, and manufacturing. Worked for some large international companies, publicly held, some family-owned international companies, and everything in between, I guess, right? And 3 years ago, decided I was going to launch my own business. I love what I do. I loved HR and still do, but I think some of the mistakes that I made as a leader, I can maybe help others navigate that world of leadership today and not make those same mistakes and those same errors that I did. Basically, is why I'm here.
Amen. I love, the fact that when we're vulnerable enough to admit that we don't get it right every time. And I guess the beauty of being an effective leader is being willing to share those things for the betterment of others. So I love to hear that, Paul. So I just want to just jump right into, like, I see you have the certifications from John Maxwell and John Gordon. You just said that you wanted to help people get better through your experience, but what really drove you into becoming a leadership coach?
Yeah, well, I had used to coach and used to coach where I worked as well, and saw what he did and saw the impact that could be had, and it just made some sense to me at some point. And I really thought, when I retire, that's what I'll do. Right, that was in my mindset. But like I said, 3 years ago, I thought about it a lot and decided, what am I waiting for? Like, why shouldn't I do this now? So I took the plunge and launched the business. And I do coaching. I do one-on-one coaching, and those clients come to me in a couple different ways. One is just an individual coming to me saying, "Hey, I think I need some help. I'm struggling with something, or I want to grow in a certain way, or I want to advance my career." Sometimes it might be, I'm not sure I'm in the right career. I'm not sure that really what I'm doing is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I need to chat and talk and be coached through it a little bit. Sometimes those clients come to me from a company. A company will come to me and say, I have this person. I want to advance them in their career. I want to move them up the ladder, so to speak. Can you work with them and give them some skills they need help with? Delegation or conflict resolution or communication or engaging their team better, or whatever it might be, and work with them like that. The other part of my business is providing customized employee training, whether it be a small group, medium-sized group, it doesn't matter. Generally in my backyard. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, East Tennessee. So we cover Knoxville and the surrounding counties, basically. And it's clients of all kinds, whether it's banking, hotels, manufacturing. It's been a real blend or mix of clients up till now. And I think that's going to continue. I don't think that's going to change. So I love what I do. I enjoy it, but I think I can pass it on to somebody else and help them make their journey a little bit easier, a little bit better.
Awesome, awesome. I love that. Knoxville, Tennessee. All right, that's cool. I would one day hope to visit Tennessee in some capacity. I hear that it's festive in some of the areas in Tennessee. So from Texas, I think we have a subtle rivalry between the universities. Who's the real UT? But you know where I stand. You know where I
Hey,
stand.
you better be careful, the real UT, you know?
Hey, don't shoot the messenger. Anyway, so what are some of the core principles that you think that are important for leaders, regardless of the industry they're in?
Yeah, I think John Maxwell says it best. He says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And I believe that through and through to the core of my soul, it's just so important. Leaders have no idea the impact they have on their people. And I've learned over the years, and I say this, I have learned as much from a bad boss or bad leader as I did from a good one, right? Things that I said I'd never do, I won't repeat that mistake. I don't want to be like that, et cetera. So leadership and every day, right? We're out there doing the same thing, but new challenges, new hurdles, new roadblocks, new situations, things change and evolve constantly in business. And same thing for leadership. We've got to move with that and change with it as we migrate through that with our teams, basically.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on, particularly in the realm of leadership. However, I think some of the things that John Maxwell talks about are tried and true, no matter what season or generation you're in. And I just love John Maxwell's definition of leadership. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, and that's something I use at least once a week, probably multiple times throughout the week, because I think the people that we have the pleasure of serving, whether that's directly from an employment standpoint or just through our businesses, they need to understand that they have a level of influence. No matter how great of a leader you think you are, or how small of a leader, you influence people in one way or another. So I'm glad you referenced John Maxwell, because he's such a titan in the industry of leadership, and he's written so many books. And I think a lot of his principles and concepts are very applicable to the things that we do even today. There's a book he might have wrote 20 years ago, still relevant to today. So, no, that's really, 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 really good. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing out in the field with the people that you're coaching? Like, I know you coach across different industries, you coach
Sure.
different people. What are some of those common challenges that people are facing? One, and two, how are you helping them get through those challenges?
Sure, absolutely. I think one of the things that and it's hard to watch, I guess you might say, but I think post pandemic, the world of work has changed, right? Remote work, hybrid work, flexibility, and it's not just Gen Z or millennials. It's everybody that is saying we need this, we want this in our life now. They saw how easy it was when the pandemic hit, and we switched over to Zoom fairly quickly in a lot of industries, a lot of businesses, a lot of companies went back to, I'll call the old way, right? Hey, I want you in the office 5 days a week. And employees are saying, I'm not trying to understand this. And leaders are kind of caught in the middle of all that. Okay, how do we handle this? What do we do? So I think leadership is probably more critical than ever. They've got to understand the world is changing, and they need to change a little bit with it and understand what their people are looking for, what they're seeking. Now, the labor market, at least in our area, has calmed down a little bit in the last maybe say 10 months, I guess, maybe a little less than that. Um, but easily, folks will move to a new job, right? They'll switch places of employment if they're not getting everything they need and want from their current employer. And that's not going to change, I don't think, unless the economy really tanks, so to speak. But I think we've got to be cognizant of that and help them along and understand the expectations are different than what they used to be. SHRM, National HR Society, did a study in 2022, I think it is, and they surveyed employees across the country, different industries, and they come up with four expectations, requirements, whatever you want to call them, right? That employees had. And one of them was employees wanted to be wowed by their employer, just like we wow a customer or a guest, whatever. They wanted to be wowed as an employee. They wanted flexibility. They said, hey, we need flexibility. They looked at it and said, we need a holistic approach to life and work, et cetera. And mental health came into the picture significantly in the last couple of years for employers and employees. So there's a couple things there that are in play that I don't think are going to change or go away, right? I think they're there for good and for good reason, right? I think it's important to understand there's a healthy perspective there that we never had before, I think, right?
No, absolutely. I think that, gone are the days where employers expect their employees, only the employees, to be agile. I think that agility has always been present in the workplace, but it has been like a one-way street almost. Like, hey,
Yeah.
top down, we expect this level of agility, this level of buy-in and loyalty. Whereas your employees, and I'm seeing that more now than ever as well, that the employee expects the employer to offer some level of agility, some level of flexibility. And you're not lying about that workplace environment where they want to be wild. Um, a lot of employees are just expecting just a higher level of service as it relates to them.
Yeah.
I've been in the workforce for over 20 years, and I remember back in the day, it was like the paycheck was the wow. The getting the check was, that was the thing that really differentiated yourself from or companies from other companies is their ability to pay. And now, like, I've seen employees take lower pay from other places if the experience or the culture is different. And so, no, you're hitting the nail on the head for sure, sir. Like, it's just that flexibility, that agility, I like to call it, is, I think, something that employees want to see on both ends of the spectrum. And I think it's something that we all, as employers or leaders and coaches, need to kind of hear. And I think this kind of funnels me into my next question. How critical is emotional intelligence in leadership? And I think that, us talking about employers being agile, I think some of that has to be rooted in emotional intelligence. So, from your perspective, how important is that, and how relevant is it to today's workplace?
Incredibly important. And that's a great question. It really is, because it is so important. If folks, leaders, are not self-aware and understand, what they're doing and why they're doing it, and the implications of it, what the outcome is, etc., they've got to see that and understand that more and more than ever before. And I think that is going to continue to trend and evolve and change, but I don't think it'll become less. I think it'll become even more significant, right? As we become more educated, more aware, whether it's an employee, whether it's a leader or company, there's going to be more stress or importance placed upon emotional intelligence. No doubt in my mind. No doubt.
And I guess, just to add to that, we talked about, you mentioned in that survey, like, about mental health awareness. And I think once more people become more in tune with who they are, more and more people are doing therapy, and I guess kind of uncovering just who they are, what makes them tick, what triggers them. And I think that we have to be more emotionally intelligent more now than ever, because we're having a workforce of people who are more acquainted with their emotions. They're more acquainted with how they feel. And so, again, I hate keep going back to this, just the olden workplace where you kind of left the feelings at the door. I vividly remember
Yeah.
first getting into the workforce, and it was, hey, I understand things might be going on at home, but you leave that at the door. Those were things that we used to say. I think I said this maybe within the last month. If I was to say that today, I would probably get wrung out to dry, because that's not the tone or the temperament of the workplaces that we work in. And so, no, I agree with you. As the workplace continues to evolve, but more specifically, the employee within the workplace continues to evolve, the need to be emotionally intelligent is prevalent. And I guess, not to put you on the spot, but, like, what would be some of the things that you would coach someone that is maybe struggling with emotional intelligence? What's, like, one or two things you would get them to work on to help
You know,
build their emotional intelligence?
yeah, I think what you just said is so. It's a great example, right? That mindset of, leave it at the door no longer should exist, right? It's not tolerated, right? It's not going to be accepted by most employees. Unfortunately, there are boomers, who are my age and maybe a little older, even, or a little younger, who still want to cling to that old mindset, that old way, saying, "Hey, it worked for me. I don't understand why it doesn't work for these folks," right? And it's a matter of educating them a little at a time, right? You can't just say turn that off because they can't just turn it off, right? But hey, you have to understand here's the implications if we continue thinking like that. What's going to happen? We got to look at ourselves a little differently as a leader and understand our role has changed because these folks, and I can point to SHRM studies in 2022 and say, here's what they're looking for. Here's the four things that they're seeking out. And the employees are telling them that anyway. They're saying that directly to when they're interviewing and being considered for positions. They're not holding back. They're telling the employer what they're looking for, what their expectation is. So I think it's just a matter of education, coaching, developing, and then they learn by experience to say, oh, yeah, this makes sense today. It really does. This is 2024. I've got to step out of where I was before and understand it's a new world out there.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Like I said, I heard I think his name is Tim Elmore. He has a consultancy as well, and he mentions just how this is probably this workforce that we're working in right now is some of the most multi generational workplaces that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
terms of you mentioned boomers, Gen Xers and Ys, everybody is in one house, and we're all trying to figure out how to coexist. We're all trying to figure out one of the challenges for me, I work in an environment where there's a lot of young people, and it's as I get older, my priorities and values are a little bit different than theirs, and just challenging myself to say, how do I bridge the gap? What strategies do I use to bridge the gap between myself and them, so I can continue to be relevant as a leader, and then help hopefully through my experiences, if we make that connection, I can then help them, come along with us on where we're going. Um, what is your take on the difference between mentoring and coach? Or did you have something to add to that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and my answer to that, I guess, and I get that question from leaders that I'm coaching or working with, saying, I don't know how to bridge that gap. I don't know how to get there, to get to them and help them, and the answer is, be genuine, be authentic, be yourself, right? Don't try to be somebody that you're not, but understand, you have to shift and think a little bit and be open to other ideas and there's opportunities there for everybody. There really are. I can learn from them as much as they can learn from me. And I got to be receptive to that and willing to take a look at myself and say, okay, how can I help along this path, this journey for this person, where maybe I didn't have that opportunity and help them a little bit. So I think it's important, a little self-reflection, but be authentic, be genuine. Don't try to fake it because that'll never go anywhere.
No, I think you are spot on when you say you have to realize that they bring value, that what the other generations bring value, and you got to respect that value. A lot of times you might not agree with everything that a person of a different generation does, or how they think. However, I think that if we lead with respect, and more so if we lead with honor, dignity, and respect,
Yeah.
and then being willing to listen. I think a lot of times leaders may go astray when they put the wall up before they even give the individual a chance to express to them on how they feel or how they think, or the things that are important to them. And I think once if we open ourselves up to having that candid conversation, that authentic conversation, we'll probably realize that we have more in common than we have different, or at least we're trying to get to similar destinations. And so, no, I love that you threw that in there for sure. But my
And,
next,
I mean, I cut you off. I'm sorry. So the fourth thing in the SHRM study was we want to be listened to. We want to be heard as employees. So you just said it, right? That's exactly what they want and what they're seeking. They're the four things.
excellent, excellent. So, what is your viewpoint on the difference between mentorship and coaching? I know we both are in the coaching business, but I also probably would gather to guess you found yourself in the form of a mentor as well. So, can you kind of like isolate the differences between those two?
Yeah, I think mentoring, I can actually point out some answers to someone, right? I can say this really worked for me, and I think folks should always have multiple mentors, not just one, right? They should have a technical mentor who knows the technical side of the business they're in, but I also think they should have a people mentor who can mentor them on the soft skill, and I hate the word term soft skills, but the soft skills of being a leader, right? Coaching is really, in my mind, it's quite different in a lot of ways, because coaching, what I'm really trying to do is mine the answer out of that person. I don't tell them what to do. I don't give them advice per se. I ask them a lot of what ifs, or what's next, or how's that going to look. What's that going to mean to you? Those help me define, or how would you define whatever it might be. So I think there's a big difference there. Mentoring is kind of one track in a certain way. Coaching is a little bit different. There's a lot going on there that I think you can help them find the answers within themselves a lot of times.
No, that was very well put. I know a lot of people might hear those two words and think they're synonyms almost, but I think the way you put that, I love the phrase mining out. Drawing out. I love that. I could just when you said that, I immediately had a picture of a person with like one of those axes, and they're just chipping away, trying to get to that goal, to get to that diamond, man. But what you're saying is exactly true. And honestly, I have that question on the docket, kind of as a shameless plug for people like us, kind of just understanding the difference between the two. I think a lot of people, we naturally attract mentorship from people that we admire or we look up to. But I think when you make the decision to get a coach, you're committing to getting into a relationship with someone who's going to hold you accountable and who's going to try to help you get to the best version of yourself. Not trying to tell you who to be, but for you to realize that you have the power, you have the ability, you have the know-how to get to this thing. And if you're out there listening, if you've gotten to this point, myself or Paul will be more than happy to assist you in those areas. And toward the end of this, we'll be able to direct them how to get in touch with you, Paul, for sure.
Sure, absolutely, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, so in your coaching experience, I know every coaching call isn't like on the up and up and all flowers and roses. I'm sure you've had some people who've had some hard days and some failures.
Yeah,
How do you approach those individuals, and what is some of the advice that you've given people that has dealt with failure?
yeah. I think one of the toughest ones for me are in a lot of ways the ones where they feel stuck or trapped in a job or career that they don't necessarily, or are not necessarily convinced at this point in their life they should be doing this for the next 20 years or 10 years or 15 years or whatever it might be. They're really questioning, are they having an impact? Are they making a difference? Are they even in the right field, et cetera? They're tough ones for me. Especially when they feel stuck or trapped because of finances, whatever it might be. I've been with this place for 20 years. If I can do another 10 years, I can retire successfully. But 10 years is a long time to do something you don't like. It really is. So we try to paint some options for them, and get them to see options and choices and decisions, and understand what that decision is going to look like 10 years from now or 5 years from now or whatever it might be that they're looking toward. They're probably the tough ones for me in a lot of ways, where they're dealing with a situation of doubt about, am I in the right job in the first place? I'm not sure this has been the career that I should have picked 20 years ago or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, I imagine that has to be a tough conversation, and you seem to be the perfect person to have that conversation with, given that you've had some career shifts in your lifetime. And I can't imagine, like, that's probably one of my blind spots as far as the coaching capacity, because I just, it's hard to think about doing something else. It's hard to come to grips with it. Now I guess if you're in a position where you're not say disgusted, but if you're at a place where you're not happy, I think it's a little bit easier to have the conversation. But man, kudos to you for having the ability to coach people through that, because I know that's probably something that I wouldn't be able to best deal with. What are some strategies that you use to inspire leaders to inspire their teams? I'm sure you're dealing with people who have people underneath them, and they may struggle in the area of motivating people to go to work. Again, we talked about those things, those four variables from that survey. All of those things could lead to the demotivation of a team or of employees. What are some strategies that you would have for, if I was coming to you for coaching to help me motivate my team?
Sure. I think leaders, one of the things, if maybe not the primary thing, but one of the things they have to do is ideally develop other leaders, right? And usually they're people on the team. And so if I invest in them, I train them, I educate them, I send them to conferences, seminars. Hey, did you listen to this podcast? It's a good one. You should listen in and let's talk about it on Friday, whatever it might be. Did you read this book? Let's this is a great book. I want to pass it along to you. Um, those people that are hungry for that will latch onto it. They'll grab it and run with it. They really will. And the ones that aren't, and there are some that don't, they don't want to grow in their career, their role. They're content with what they're doing. That's fine too, right? You just have to understand it's a mix and blend of folks that make up the team. But if I can give some of them the tools and be smart enough to recognize, who I pour more heavily into in that sense, as far as future development versus understanding and recognizing Johnny over here or wherever, right, is content doing the Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, whatever it might be, and that's all he wants out of his career and his life. He's content. He's good. He doesn't need to be. Doesn't want to be. Yeah, he goes to a seminar or conference once in a while, but it's not super critical or important to him. I, as a leader, have to be smart enough to know that, right? I got to be able to see that and say, this makes sense for me as a leader, makes sense for the team, and it makes sense for the individuals on my team where I invest and provide resources to.
Yeah, no, no, very, very good thought. I guess one of the best ways to, motivate a team is to invest in them. Invest in the furtherance of their career. So, I love that you said that. Give me your top, and I'm gonna use this word. I know you don't like it. You already said you don't like it, and I don't necessarily think this is just soft skills. What I'm about to ask you, but what are your top 3 to 5 skills that you think leaders need to excel in their workplaces?
I think one is definitely accountability, right? Holding folks accountable. Um, and interestingly, I did a training not too long ago with a client, and the supervisors in the room, one of the things they said, and I was kind of took back by a little bit, said, we want to be held accountable for our work. And we don't think that happens here in this particular place. And I was kind of like shocked. I really was. For them to sit there and say that and put it out there, it's pretty brave, pretty daring. So I like that they felt comfortable. But accountability, I think, is one. Having difficult conversations with their team members that need to be challenged, need to be pushed a little bit, whatever it might be. Having those hard talks goes a long way. And I think a lot of leaders struggle with that. They have a hard time doing that because, hey, I work with this person for the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I'm here with them 8, 10 hours a day. I spend more time with my waking hours with them than I do with my own family, et cetera. So it's hard for folks. So I think accountability, difficult conversations. For some folks, that I is delegation, is letting go, right? They think or want that they have to do it all themselves. And we've got to paint the picture for them that that's the last thing from the truth. They need to let go and delegate and let their team grow and develop, because that's one way they're going to do that. And then they can move on to something different if they do that, right? They're going to grow with it. So there are three that, when you ask the question, that come to my mind pretty quickly. Yeah, definitely accountability, difficult conversations, and delegation. I think they're probably my top three, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think we all, well, maybe not you, but I think we all struggle with delegation to some capacity, particularly those younger leaders, as they're trying to climb the ladder, as they're trying to, position themselves for the next promotion. It's hard for them to let things go, and relinquish authority. I think that there's a phrase, and I don't know if you're going to agree with this or not, but there used to be a phrase, you ask the question, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Well, we've morphed that in a little bit in my world. Is you throw a party, you get more people in, and you devour the elephant, right? You got more
I
people
love
taking bites, and so you don't get to that point to where you can accelerate what you're doing if you're not delegating. You're probably impeding progress on what you would like to do in your organization because you're not delegating, you're not letting people. And then also too, when we talked about motivating people, one way to motivate folks is to give them an assignment, give them a task of something that you deemed important that you used to do or you would do. Let them do it. Going back to Maxwell says if there's a person on your team that can do something at 80% of your capacity, let them do it. And then Craig Rochelle, and I'm sure you're familiar with
Yeah.
Craig Rochelle. Craig Rochelle added to that and said, hey, if you got a person on your team that can do what you can do at 50% of your capacity with momentum, let them do it. So I think those two things, from those two great leaders, really speak to that need of, hey, you need to delegate. If you want to, if you've surrounded yourself with the right people, you've trained them, you trust them, delegate some tasks to them. And I don't want to just dwell on that one. I do believe accountability is important as well.
Yeah.
I believe that all of the three ones that you brought up are important, but that delegation is one I think that a lot of people have some struggle with for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And I think with delegation, and whether it's 50%, 80%, understand and recognize there may be mistakes or missteps or failures along the way, but that's okay, right? And unless I'm in an OR and I'm a surgeon, that's probably okay. It's not going to kill the business, right? So understand that I can delegate to a certain level and recognize that one way they're going to grow and develop is by making a mistake or a misstep, whatever it might be. And I got to be careful with that, right? I can't just, hey, free reign and let them do anything. But there's levels of delegation that I can give. And I need to know as a leader what that is with each individual and the product that I'm delegating or the task I'm delegating to help them along. So I love the delegation thing. I think it's real important.
Yeah, most definitely, man. No, you're clicking on all cylinders. So this is my last question. I've really enjoyed the time, Paul. I'm so glad that you took the time to reach out to come on the show. I believe that you're adding a ton of value to the people who are going to receive
Thank
this
you.
message. How do you see leadership evolving in the next decade? And what should leaders be doing today to prepare for tomorrow's challenges? Sorry, that might be a loaded question,
Yeah,
but
no,
but but
it's a tough question. I mean, I don't know. I wish I could tell you 10 years from now what it's going to look like or what it's going to be like. One of the things that I think is really important is build your network now. Don't wait till you need it 3 years from now, 5 years from now, seven, whatever it is, right? Do it now. Get out there and meet people, get involved, volunteer for in associations if there's whether it's an HR association or an accounting association, whatever your profession is, there's groups out there. Get involved, participate, engage with them, build your network now, even though you may not think you need it now. You'll need it at some point in the future. I guarantee you. It's going to change. It's going to continue to evolve. Um, it has dramatically changed in I think in the last 5 years. But you look back 50 years ago, we wouldn't have had this conversation 50 years ago. There's no way. There's no way it wouldn't have happened.
and I love that answer because it speaks to something that hasn't changed, and that's relationship.
Absolutely.
Relationship, no matter smartphone, computer, jets, trains, cars, relationships are still the main driver for development, growth, and promotion. And so when you talk about building a network, and getting to meet people and talking to people, you're talking about building relationships. And so I
Absolutely.
love that you hit on that core principle because no matter what, there might be somebody that you met 5 years ago in some industry that you had no idea about, and then you might come across something where, oh, I know Paul knows about this,
Yeah.
or I might have a trip coming up to Knoxville pretty soon. Hey, let me call my buddy Paul and see what's going on out there to see, so no, I love that on a personal level, on a professional level, you can't go wrong with building positive relationships, and you do that through networking, you do that through volunteering, you do that through all the things that you mentioned. So I absolutely love that. Do you have any parting words, any last thoughts on leadership or whatever you want to tell the people here at TPE?
Yeah. I guess the other thing is just because you're not in a leadership position or title does not mean you're not a leader, right? Some of us are leading all the time, every day, and we don't even understand or realize what we're doing. So you don't have to have the title, you don't have to have the position. You're just naturally a leader by default, by what you do and how you do it, and people look up to you, respect that, they trust you. Um, use that, use that to help them grow, develop, advance, whatever it might be. Don't be afraid to use that.
Excellent, excellent. So, for those of you who are out there listening and you want to get connected to Paul, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. Email is probably the best, or LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. They can always DM me. But my email is execcoach, EXECCOACH at paulboyles.com. And my website is paulboyles.com. So any one of those three is fine. And I'd love to chat with people and talk to them, or just do a virtual chat and see what they got to say and hear them a little bit.
Well, I appreciate you, Paul, for having the courage and the confidence to reach out. You've done exceedingly well today, if that means anything. You've done you've done an awesome job.
Thank you.
In this interview. Even though I believe we have the real burnt orange over here in Texas.
Oh,
Um,
I could
no.
never agree to that. I could never agree to that. I get
well,
in trouble in my hometown.
if, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that Peyton Manning may have played for University of Tennessee, and
Yes.
I think there's a relative now playing at University of Texas. Maybe they came to the census a little bit. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But anyway, no. Enough about that. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
You guys visit his website, get in touch with him at a very bare minimum. Contact, get connected with him on LinkedIn.
I appreciate it.
There's a lot of good things happening on LinkedIn. Paul is putting out great content. He is somebody you definitely want to network with. Hey, to future proof your leadership at a minimum, you should be networking. And Paul's someone who I think you should network
Absolutely.
with. And so you get connected with him and see what he has going on. Again, thank you, Paul, and thank you guys out there for listening. You guys know that I really appreciate all the support, all of the positive words you guys give to this show. It really helps us keep this thing going. Really keeps us motivated to continue to put out good content. And until next time, TPE family, peace.
Thank you very much. Good to talk with you.
Tap into the Pivot Experience where we help young, hungry entrepreneurs